everyone, I'm Charlene Yang. Welcome to the Taiwan Academy Lecture Series in 2020 at the University of Edinburgh. This is our greatest pleasure to welcome Professor Goang-Ming Yuan onto our lecture series today. A pioneer of video art in Taiwan, Professor Goang-Ming Yuan has worked with video since 1984 and is now one of the foremost Taiwanese artists active in the International Media Art Center. He holds a post as a professor of the New Media Art Department of Taipei National University of Arts. And Professor Yuan is the recipient of the Xiongshi Art Award, the first prize of the Taipei County Art Award, the jury's prize of the first Digital Art Festival, the 13th Taixin Art Award, and represented Taiwan at the 50th Venice Biennale. Professor Yuan has participated in various exhibitions across Europe, Asia, and the States. Among those includes the solo exhibition at the Hayward Gallery in London, Aichi Triennial, Bangkok Art Biennial, Lyon Biennale in France, Fukuoka Asian Art Triennial in Japan, the 7th Asia Pacific Triennial of Contemporary Art in Australia, Singapore Biennial, Liverpool Biennial, Auckland Triennial in New Zealand, Seoul International Media Art Biennial in Korea, and ICC Biennial in Japan. In 2020 and 21, Professor Yuan will participate in the After Hope exhibition at Asian Art Museum of San Francisco, Shortwave Festival in Poland, and the Rise of East Asia Video Art exhibition at the OCAT Shanghai. In the lecture today, he will guide us through his thoughts around the idea that home in the future is no longer solid, and how the works are centered on the normalization and everydayness of warfare, embodying modern-day existence and human despair. Tomorrowland, a lecture by Professor Goang-Ming Yuan.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Dr. Charlene Yang, for such a nice introduction. Hello, everyone. Thanks to Edinburgh College of Art, the University of Edinburgh, for inviting me to speak. I'm very happy to be part of the series of Taiwan Academy Lectures and have this opportunity to show my work and share my thoughts with you today. Because of COVID-19, I can't speak in front of you face-to-face. For the first time, I'm using online video to speak internationally. In 2008, I was invited to the Liverpool Biennale and exhibited a video of an empty Liverpool city centre. This video actually came from a photo that I took at the top of the TV tower in Liverpool. In post-production, a busy district became a ghost town. This work was inspired by an earlier 2001 solo show and a 2002 Taipei Biennale invitation. As you see on the screen, this is on the daytime in Taipei, Taiwan. This is a nighttime version. In 2018, I made a video work called Everyday Maneuver. I used 5 drones to film the 5 main streets in Taipei during a military exercise. Strangely, not unlike many cities we have witnessed in recent COVID times, I will introduce these pieces in more detail later. Now I would like to share with you some selected videos based on the past 35 years of my work. I like this painting very much. The farmers in the painting hear the church bells from the distance and putting down their tools to pray. It's a perfectly harmonious scene between human, nature, and God. Looking at my current work, the concept is still very similar. It all questions if such peaceful living is possible. This video was made by my first camera. I put in a box and took it to video the grass in a straight line shooting. It's a very boring work. It's just this painting and the grass alternate play back. A harmonious scene, occasionally violent scenes shot through the grass. It makes an uncanny feeling. Video is a time-based media, so it's possible to present the sound of the church bells in the painting. And it's one of the most important reasons that I moved to media art from traditional art. After this work, most of my motive came from my personal experience. This was my first video projection work and shown at my first solo exhibition at IT Park Gallery in Taipei. The projection was a golden fish swimming on a white ceramic plate, which was placed on the floor. The fish leisurely swims around the plate, but can never escape its confines. After this show, I went to Germany to continue my study. This is my first video work that I made while studying in Germany in 1995. In the production process, I filmed the cage as I took a walk, also as I took a bike ride, and another time, I slowly turned it around in a circle. The speeded up effect was aided in post-production, and FYI, no harm came to the bird in the making of this work. Because the camera is fixed to the cage. When it's rotating, the cage doesn't move, but the scenery outside spins. This work is a light installation which is made of a kinetic device with light and phosphorus pigment. I painted pigment onto the back of an aluminum plate and shone a light on the surface for 5 seconds at intervals of 30 seconds. So we can only see the reflection of the phosphorus light behind. Phosphorus pigment is a material that holds the light and glows in the dark, and I was fascinated by this feature. It is difficult to experience this work from this documentary video. At the exhibition of this work, the audience would see a square black hole that moves. This is a very strange perception and an experience they wouldn't have seen before. There's a short story behind this work. When I was studying in Germany, I almost graduated, but was lacking 1 credit, so I took a painting course. I thought my painting ability should be no problem, so I finished a small oil painting and happily showed it to my professor. The professor looked at it for some time and finally said to me, "I can't understand your painting. Just paint more." The content I painted was of 2 Japanese sumo. Later, I went back and painted more Japanese sumo, bigger and more realistic. On returning to the professor, he frowned and said, I still don't understand," and politely asked me to paint something else. I felt I had the skills to paint, but I really don't know what to paint. I was very frustrated. Searching for inspiration, I wandered through an art store and was excited to find the phosphorus pigment. After After experimenting, and almost by accident, this became the work. I was very happy. As you can see, it is a light installation, not a painting, but I bit a bullet to show it to my professor. After he saw it, he didn't say anything and then rushed to grab his assistant to show him. Finally, he said to me excitedly in German, "Das ist Malerei. Das ist doch Malerei." In English means it is a painting. It is definitely painting. And then I received an A+. While a student in Karlsruhe, Germany, I filmed myself walking backwards, explaining slowly in a forest, a city shopping area, and a local park. Then editing the video, I reversed everything and also speeded up the playback. I appeared to be walking forward at a normal pace, and everything else around me moves quickly backwards. This work was shown at the SF MoMA in San Francisco. This is me when I was a young man. In the installation, I used phosphorus powder to capture the image of my face. The image remains for a short time after the projector is turned off. The vibration through the bass speaker caused the powder to dance. In the dark, we only see the image of the destroyed face. The whole work is a loop. The image of a face projected onto the speaker and destroyed by his own sound. This is my first interactive installation, also the first solo show in Taiwan after I came back from Germany. As you can see, the pillow is moving like breathing. I installed a mechanical device under it that slowly moved up and down to give the effect. The bed is empty and the video projection doesn't begin until the audience touches the bedpost. The projection of the cut is the one of the shortest videos in a random sequence. Projector set up on the ceiling and mapping the videos onto the bed. The 8 pre-filmed videos were controlled by a computer program. There were static sensors installed in the 4 bed posts, which were connected to the computer and triggered by the audience. Most of the video projections have no specific meaning. At that time, I suffered with insomnia and wanted to share the experience of this half-wake, half-sleep state. This work is a continuation of my previous works, The Cage and Path, and comes from a similar concept of relative space between inner and outer perception. These works all use common images to reflect reality. In production, I created uncertain images for the viewer, generating new sensory experiences between the familiar and the foreign, inverting preconceived perceptions. The boat is floating without any goal or destination. Both previous works and even Fish on Dish expressed a sense of unstable feelings and loneliness. The boat is a handmade model, and a waterproof camera was fixed at one end. So that in the video, you can see the boat looks fixed and the sea is rocking. This is my first digitally altered photograph of a still image series, which began in 2001. I did work on more videos up to this point. So why did I turn to photography? In short, I just got bored with video, and I felt I want to make some changes. It was also a turning point that I shifted my focus on a personal state to concern about the environment and the city we live in. I created this image by taking multiple photographs with a conventional large format 4x5 camera. I took more than 200 photos over a 2-week period of the hustle and bustle of Ximen district from a fixed location. Then I used the computer software repeatedly, cut and paste actions, painstakingly erase all the people and cars, and covering it up with unpopulated images from different photographs of the same scene. After digitizing the photos, I used computer software to painstakingly cut away the unwanted cars and people out of over 200 images. I then stitched together the empty space of each photo to give the final image you see. As I mentioned in my opening remarks that in 2008, I was invited to the Liverpool Biennale and exhibited a video of an empty city center. This video actually came from a photo that I took at the top of the Radio City Tower in Liverpool. In post-production, a busy district became an empty urban landscape, an incomplete city. Like the last work, many photographs were used, then made into a moving image. Through software effects, the audience is guided to see the city in more detail, as if through a magnifying glass. The image is always moving, but very slowly. The work is more than 2 hours long. I'm not sure I'd have enough popcorn. Let's move on to the next work. In 2004, I bought an abandoned house in New Taipei City. Not a lot of people appreciated these properties, so it was really cheap. I began to remodel a home out of the abandoned house. I also began to think about the meaning of home. This was the first time that I used 3 cameras to film my house and the surroundings. It was also the first time I began to video my father, wife, and 2 dogs. The 3 cameras were used to create a scan of the landscape in an attempt to capture the disappearing moment. The camera was used as an observing eye. We move from the present moment into the future. The moment before is lost into the past. This is my father. He was over 80 years old at the time and danced every day, 2 sessions per day, mostly balloon dancing. For example, he enjoyed cha-cha, jitterbug, rumba. He was extremely healthy, so much so that I worried that there must be something wrong. I was aware of his advancing age and limited time, and an impending notion that these good times could pass quickly. Strangely, I was constantly expecting the worst. 2 years later, he died of stomach cancer. This video is a continuation of the last work. My father died 4 months before the birth of my first child. So in such a short space of time, I faced birth and death. Because of my complicated emotions, there's a second version of Disappearing Landscape, a way to complete my thoughts about home and memory. It was also a tribute to my late father. In 1949, during the Chinese Civil War, my 18-year-old father, along with other soldiers and civilians, escaped China and retreated to Taiwan. He believed his stay in Taiwan only temporary, but this temporary stay turned into 60 years. After 40 years, Taiwan's martial law was lifted. Then he was allowed to visit his home in China for the first time. My father was one of million refugees from the mainland, all with similar stories and a tragedy of their generation. In my early childhood, he would often hum a section from a Peking opera. There was one song he liked that had the lyrics, "I am like a cage bird, with wings that I can't stretch. I'm like a tiger away from the mountains, alone and suffering. I'm like a wild goose nosebound, lost and separate from my flock. I'm like a dragon in shallow waters, stranded on a sandbank. When I grew up and after his death, I understood why he liked this song so much, and I began to imagine my father's thoughts of home, and saw them as a floating balloon adrift. Now I'd like to play a behind-the-scenes trailer I made for the Before Memory solo show. Andy is the guy you see playing the drum. He's the guy in charge of all the artists' projects, and then at the weekend, a white rocker in a band. In the summer of 2008, I was chosen as a resident artist at the graphite distillery in the town of Dufftown in Scotland, with a population of around 2,000. The program invites 6 to 8 artists every year. The year artists from England, Scotland, Canada, the US, and China. Basically, artists are invited from countries where graphitic whiskey sells well. Not only visual artists are invited, but poets, musicians, and even a chef. We were paid a generous artist fee and offered a very large space in which we could produce our works during the 2 months. They asked only one thing of the artists involved in the program: to leave one of their works for exhibition purpose in their gallery. Dufftown is located in the Scottish countryside, and the nearest supermarket requires a 1-hour bus ride. It's super beautiful, not unlike the Windows desktop background. The walking is wonderful, and the air is fresh with a hint of light whiskey. The people and work patterns at the distillery were pretty ordinary and routine. In my mind, these people and the events were connected to the idea of everyday things, natural growth, and then decline, concepts used in my previous exhibitions. In this work, I used a phosphorescent board as a projection screen. Here you can see a blurred figure posed like a formal portrait. This is my wife, Mio. At the last second of the video, the blurred figure becomes clear. The projection is covered by a shutter, sounding like the automatic shutter of a camera. When the projection is switched off, the blurred image remains on the surface of the phosphorescent screen and glows in the dark. As time goes by, the glowing image slowly fades. This is the first video work I filmed with my 1-year-old daughter. It's a video sculpture. It's very similar to earlier works I've shown the cage and the floating. But this time, I attached a curved wooden board onto the screen. One can't notice the piece is fastened in place until the video turns to black. The curved wooden board becomes an anchor in a rocking world, in contrast to the stable holes. The purpose of the work is to invert preconceived thinking in order to create new experiences between the familiar and foreign. This cute little piece is a video sculpture. This is my daughter at 4 years old. This time, I attach a pin onto the screen. This was a projection version and shown at Taipei Fine Art Museum. As you see from the screen, the curved wooden board and the pin become much bigger in proportion. An Uncanny Tomorrow is the title of this solo show in 2014. The word Uncanny is a psychological term used by Sigmund Freud. This word in German is unheimlich. Unheimlich can be translated into English as unhome, which in German language means insecure and uncomfortable and related to the home. But the concept of home in nowadays seems to be unstable. This is a video installation. There is a projection on the wall and a floor lamp, along with a sofa placed in the middle of the space with a rock at their feet. The audience can sit on the sofa comfortably and watch this uncomfortable video. In this video, on one ordinary day, you can see a middle-class IKEA-style living room. If you watch the video carefully, then you will find something very strange, such as tiny bubbles that signal something is different about this room. The shirt seems to be floating and the newspaper is flipping slowly. The calm lasts around 1 minute, then comes a tremendous explosion. We soon realized the whole living room is actually underwater. I make the video as a seamless loop. There's no beginning and no end. The reason why I submerged the living room in water is because this is the most safe and comfortable place in humankind, like the baby in the mother's womb, in a kind of amniotic state. I chose the title of the work, Dwelling, as I was inspired by a phrase, poetically man dwells, by the German philosopher Martin Heidegger's speech he wrote after World War II in 1951. As I know, the meaning of the phrase is about the harmony between the gods, nature, and humans. But in reality, the state of poetically man dwells seems very difficult to achieve, and this harmony is still very far away from us. This is a kinetic installation that presents a table lined with 4 dinner service, all bought from IKEA. This symbolizes the global manufacturing industry. Hidden under the table, I installed a machine set to hit the table at random times. To be honest, I often get shocked myself. The installation creates a shocking feeling of a person striking the table, maybe in anger, in disagreement, or a demonstration of opposition to another. It is possible the unseen act makes you feel as if you have done something wrong. Could it be a natural force or phenomenon like an earthquake or explosion or something unseen? The work also expresses my early interest in Zen. Zen is unexplainable and unteachable. It's more about the epiphany that one can only get by oneself. Ancient Zen masters have not left any guiding literature to the past. There are still some fundamental methods of self-discipline of the Zen approach for students to follow. There is one method I read when I was a high school student from a contemporary book by Suzuki Daisetsu. The method is keep your mind at every moment in a state of astonishment. Wow! When I read this sentence, it was as if my head was hit by a hammer. I was surprised yet confused about the meaning of the sentence. Since then, the sentence has stayed in my mind. The work is more or less about that. This is my most political video work to date and focuses on the student movement of 2014 in Taiwan. It was the first time in history that Taiwanese legislature building had been occupied by students for nearly 1 month. If it sounds like the legislature building was not very secure and easy enough to break in, it was. The reason for the students' protest was the past free trade agreement with China. Many believed that the bill would damage Taiwan's economy and its political independence. The pro-China governing party at the time passed the law within 1 minute, with little or no 9x9 review. These students were protesting and fighting for a better future in life. For me, the occupation over the months transformed the building into a temporary dwelling for the students, a home surrounded by dozens of uniformed police. In the second half of the video, I erased all the people in post-production, a painstaking job of 2 months in the editing process, leaving only an empty, silent space, cameras, laptops, and backpacks. I choose to erase the people within the space in contrast to the images we were so used to seeing of the protests on TV in Taiwan. The occupied and busy legislature hall, as reported by the Taiwanese media, had become common images, and the empty hall left a space for curiosity, question, and provoke thought. For the background music, the Taiwanese national anthem was slowed to half speed. Then it sounded like a hymn with a church-like structure. It creates the feeling of both the sacrificial and the sacred. This is behind the scenes. Inside the building, my camera was set up on a remote control cable can and traveled in a linear shot to scan the whole back and forth during 3 days. The end result is the government finally agreed to meet with them to discuss their requirements, and eventually all the students and the media left. 2 years later, after the movement, the pro-Chinese party KMT were defeated by the DDP party during an election in 2016. After the movement, no member of the students was ever sentenced or jailed for the protest. This video installation is a synchronized 3-channel projection. The audience needs to enter the space through a narrow entrance. They will find themselves faced with a large and wide projection. 12 blurred life-size figures will walk towards them from the distance and point their fingers at a precise synchronized moment. The focus rests on the 12 fingertips before the figures fall backwards into the darkness. There is a moment of brightness before 12 more blurred figures walk forward and repeat. The gesture of a pointing finger has multiple meanings. It can be an accusation, direction, blame, indication, or a direct you. This creates an atmosphere of discomfort, an uneasy feeling, possibly a mistake, even making us confess to something. This digital photograph was taken at a famous beach, Uncanny in the south of Taiwan. Every summer, this landscape is clouded with people relaxing on the beach, unaware of the nuclear power plant in the distance. This photograph was constructed in a similar way as the previous works of the Excited Qualified series. I removed all the tourists from the image and only kept their bags, parasols, and chairs, as if everyone had suddenly disappeared. Yet the uncanny lack of people becomes only visible if one looks closer at the image, and slowly the fragility of our everyday life is revealed, lived in the shadow of the technological sublime. This work was chosen as the leading image of the Lyon Biennale in France in 2015. The curator was Rolf Rugoff, who is the director of Haywood Gallery in London. After then, he also invited me for a solo exhibition in the Haywood Gallery in 2018. This video is about nuclear power. This work has shown at the Haywood Gallery. Power is a kind of energy and can be tangible or intangible. It was inspired by the Fukushima nuclear power plant's radiation leak on the 11 March 2011, triggered by a huge earthquake and followed by a destructive tsunami, causing an unstoppable nuclear disaster. The event left my Japanese wife and family in panic. Then nuclear power became a real issue in our home in Taiwan. I later found out that the nearest nuclear power plant is only 17 kilometers away from our home and 23 kilometers away from the Taiwanese presidential palace. Taiwan is a small island but already has 3 nuclear power plants. For this work, I used a drone and a cable cam to document the nuclear power plant. I also filmed its nuclear waste storage on a small island off the coast of Taiwan named Lanyu. Many Taiwanese indigenous live here and are given free electricity by the power company. This is the elementary school in Lanyu, a very beautiful school. But the irony is that the nuclear waste storage is only 5 minutes drive from it. Here is the functional simulated control room used for training. It looks very weird and outdated, like something from an 80s sci-fi film. I was granted permission to film in the power plant. Maybe they thought I was going to make a promotion video for nuclear power. This is the now abandoned theme park in Taichung City, which was formerly the largest amusement park in Asia. The exhibition Tomorrowland continues to explore the themes introduced in Uncanny Tomorrow, expanding ideas about the environment we're living in out into the world at large. A home for tomorrow and into the future is no longer a stable concept. The exhibition focuses on the war in our everyday and the everyday during war. Tomorrowland consists of works that are closely interconnected, from the blinding flash of light symbolizing a nuclear explosion to the air raid drills in Taiwan post-martial law. Then the Disneyland-like amusement park representing globalization and the migrant workers in search of a better life, all in an attempt to echo anxieties of our complicated world. This work also has shown at the Harewood Gallery, London. The amusement park is a symbolic image of a happy world. I use the image as an ironic metaphor to the real world we are living in. The work tries to express the state of contemporary existence, such as the refugee crisis, terrorism, and the different effects of globalization. All the issues revolve around a concept home. We can see in this video that the flags are waving. If you look carefully at the video, you can see the carousel and the chairs moving slowly. You also see the clouds in the sky moving, leaves, plastic cups, bags, and rubbish swaying on the ground. Then the explosion starts. This work also has shown at the Highwood Gallery. The crowded Taipei comes to a stop when the silent sounds of the city. This work is a video about one of the Yuan air raid drills in Taiwan. Yuan means everything will be peaceful and safe. The drill has been going on since 1978, even after martial law lifted in Taiwan in 1987. It continues to this day. It takes place in the whole country in the months of May and June, and the drill happens once a year. During the drill, all cars must stop and pull over to the side of the road. People must stay indoors and stay inside their cars. Let's watch the whole video and I can give you a rest from me talking. This is a real spectacle becomes a real part of Taiwan's landscape. In Taiwan, we will find unique news reports that are online about some of the things that happened during the drill. For example, a dinosaur was walking in the middle of the street, and it turned out to be a man in a dinosaur suit who claimed he did it just out of fun. The Strangers is about migrant workers in Taiwan. So far, there are more than 600,000 migrant workers in Taiwan, which has exceeded Taiwanese indigenous. They are becoming the third largest group in Taiwan. On the second Sunday of each month, if you are at the Zhongli station in Taiwan, what you see and hear will make you feel like you are in another train station in some Southeastern Asia country. They migrate for better economic or living conditions, and some are forced to leave their home to another country. There were millions of immigrants who retreated to Taiwan after the KMT lost the 1949 Chinese Civil War. My father also was a part of many mainland military persons and civilians who fled. If we think about the people who migrate from China referred to political science are loyalists. If we refer to cultural geography, they are mainlanders. In sociology, these displaced persons are refugees. This video was shot using a high-speed camera and a very strong flashlight. It was shot through the window from inside the train and captured migrant workers and the passengers on the platform. In this situation, everyone on the platform seems to become frozen. The passengers become statues. Their faces are in clear focus, forcing the audience to make eye contact by visualizing the invisible migrants of society. This is behind the scenes. When the strong light turns on, the audiences find themselves in a completely white smoke-filled space with 6 chairs placed on the floor. Towards Darkness takes place in a totally dark room. This was the first time that I presented an immersive experience. Here's a video documentary of an interview I did in 2018, including the work. Let's watch. 这次展览里面有一个比较不一样的，称为一种体验式的展演。这样的一个方式，其实是我过去所有创作经验里面没有的。基本上还是来自于我一直以来对于影像的一关心。如果从我第一件录像开始算起，至今2008年，应该也有33年对于影像的一些创作。如果说影像是光的话，如果把光抽离掉，这个影像有没有可能在我们的心灵里面形成另外一种幽灵的影像？其实我一直非常关心作品里面所谓的感知跟身体性。我有3个助理导演，基本上我们4个人其实都是在黑暗当中去摸索、去学习、慢慢去理解，怎么去建构起这样一个我们过去都没有经验的这样的一个作品。作品它就是一个全黑的空间。塞满了人，加起来差不多有60个人。对，那每次观众就4人。一开始4个观众要进来之前，会有4个带领者，把他带到一个黑暗的空间当中。这些带领者他们会翻书，然后会写字，听到一些脚步声。唯一有2个影像观众看得到。那个影像好像是幽灵的存在我们的脑海当中，这样。然后再可以看到影像是，就是这个空间的墙面都站满了人，将近40个人，然后每个人就是举起手指指着观众这样。在向黑的里面有实际的人声去哼唱一首法国童谣《2只老虎》，它其实是中华民国在中国当时的一首临时国歌。观众会被包围起来，会被推挤，像是在一个非常拥挤的车站，或是像某一种很紧急的状况当中，你想上船上不了船，或者是当你在思考要不要上船的时候，就被推上了船。推挤的时候，他会感觉到有一个人把一个东西放在他的手里，所以当他握了这个东西到向光的这个空间里面，有些观众会打开来看，里面其实是一封信。这封信的内容大概意旨就是说，你还好吗？我在这边生活的还算可以，慢慢的稳定，非常想念你们，希望就是有一天是可以看到你们。整个表演基本上还是来自于我父亲，他是1949年的时候国共内战从中国坐船到台湾，这个离散从一个国家到另外一个国家，或者说不得不到另外一个地方去这件事情，其实也是呼应，这是整个展览我所关心的事情。 The works towards darkness and towards light, unveiled in this solar exhibition, are my latest thoughts, using an extremely dark space in contrast to an entirely white space, questioning the nature of the human experience in relation to the image. In Towards Light, my question is, if the image comes only from light, what would this experience of the image be? When pushed to the extreme without an obvious symbol or contrast. In Towards Darkness, when the light of the image is removed to leave only the dark, how then do we experience this image without light? Is it possible the image originates as perception like a phantom and not from our eyes? It's been 35 years since my first video work. When I look back, I realize that I have come full circle. My original thoughts on Martin Heidegger's poetically man dwellers seem a difficult, harmonious state to achieve. Is our dream of a peaceful Tomorrowland so far away? Thank you. And thanks again to the school for the invitation and the opportunity to share my work. Bye-bye.